The sound cracked through the cabin like a lightning bolt, sharp, jarring, and immediate. Conversations ceased. Magazine pages hung mid-turn. Even the soft cries of a baby stopped, silenced by the electric shockwave of disbelief. A pregnant black woman sat in seat 14D, one hand raised instinctively to her cheek, stunned by the heat swelling beneath her skin. Her name was Dana Hayes. She was 36, 6 months pregnant, and exhausted from a life of navigating the quiet prejudice of white spaces with grace, calm, and exhausting self-control. And now, as the imprint of a flight attendant's slap burned across her face, all of that careful poise seemed to unravel at 35,000 feet. The woman who'd struck her stood with her arms still partially raised, face taut with satisfaction and a whisper of defiance in her cold blue eyes. "I told you to remain in your seat," the flight attendant said, her voice low and unwavering. Dana's world tilted, not from altitude but from indignation, from humiliation, from a lifetime of being careful suddenly colliding with a moment of raw injustice. She felt the gaze of the entire cabin, passengers frozen in shock or pretending not to see. Her daughter shifted inside her womb, as if reacting to the tension coiling through Dana's body. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone. "You must remain in airplane mode during the flight." The attendant snapped again, authority weaponized in her tone. Dana's voice, steadier than she expected, replied, "I need to make a call. And once I do, this plane isn't going anywhere." Nobody could have foreseen how those few words would ripple into something much larger. How a moment of cruelty would spiral into exposure, solidarity, and reckoning. 3 hours earlier, Dana had been just another passenger passing through Newark Liberty International Airport. A seasoned traveler, she'd perfected a system: compression socks for swelling, an aisle seat for frequent restroom access, water-bought post-security, and a calm, focused demeanor that served her well in professional spaces where she was often the only black woman in the room. She approached the TSA checkpoint with practiced patience, one hand on her belly, the other pulling a modest carry-on. When a TSA agent motioned her toward the body scanner, Dana raised her chin calmly. "I'm pregnant," she said. "I'd prefer the pat-down option." The agent sighed with impatience and directed her to wait off to the side. 5 minutes passed before a female officer arrived and conducted the check professionally, but without warmth. The delay cost her precious boarding time. By the time she reached the gate, they had already begun calling the later boarding groups. She explained she had pre-boarding privileges due to pregnancy, and the gate agent let her through with barely a glance. Dana followed an elderly couple down the jetway. The woman offered a warm smile. "My daughter just had her second. There's nothing like it." "First for me," Dana replied. "A little girl. You're glowing. Best adventure of your life is just ahead." Dana smiled, savoring the kindness. She made her way to seat 14D and stowed her luggage with some effort. She checked her watch, a vintage Cartier passed down from her grandmother, and had just enough time to text her husband. "Boarding now. Love you both. See you in Atlanta." She settled in. Her seatmate soon arrived, a middle-aged man in a suit who took the window seat and promptly closed his eyes, and a bubbly young woman with chestnut hair and an NYU hoodie who slid into the middle seat. "Hi, I'm Chloe," the girl said cheerfully. "Dana. You're expecting?" Dana smiled. 6 months. A girl. That's so exciting. My sister just had a baby." Chloe pulled out her phone and showed off photos of her niece, and Dana found herself genuinely charmed. The camaraderie helped ease her fatigue. Announcements began. Flight 2817 to Atlanta. The plane filled quickly. Dana noticed one flight attendant immediately. A woman in her 50s with platinum hair in a tight bun and makeup applied with military precision. Her name tag read Susan. Unlike her colleagues, Susan's inspection of passengers was curt, her eyes cold. When Susan reached their row, she scrutinized Dana briefly before moving on without a word. Dana noticed the tension in her posture. Chloe leaned closer. "Is it just me, or is she giving you death stares?" "Maybe she's just tired," Dana replied. "Or maybe she missed her calling as a prison warden." They laughed, The plane taxied, lifted, and Dana focused on her breathing, something she'd learned in prenatal yoga. Chloe gripped the armrests until Dana guided her through deep breaths at cruising altitude. Dana excused herself to use the restroom. Pregnancy had turned her bladder into a tyrant. She walked to the front of the cabin where both lavatories were occupied. She stood behind an older gentleman who offered polite conversation. He introduced himself as Professor Lowell from Columbia University's History Department. You in academia? Architecture, Dana replied. Ah, the builders. I study the ruins. They shared a warm chuckle. He congratulated her on her pregnancy, the third stranger today to echo the same sentiment. Dana finally entered the lavatory. As she washed her hands, a sudden knock startled her. Passengers must return to their seats. Turbulence, came Susan's sharp voice. There had been no turbulence when she entered, no illuminated seatbelt sign. Still, Dana stepped out, confused. Susan blocked the aisle. Captain turned on the seatbelt sign. Return to your seat. Dana nodded. I didn't see it on before, but okay. Rules apply to everyone, Susan added, her tone edged with something more than concern. Even those who think they're special. Dana froze. I don't think I'm special. I just had to use the restroom. Back to your seat, Susan ordered. Dana complied, returning to her row. Chloe looked up, alarmed. What happened? Apparently, I broke some unwritten rule. Chloe frowned. The sign just came on right now. Dana exhaled, sipping water from the drink service cart. A kind attendant named Monique served them, a pleasant contrast to Susan. They made small talk. Chloe talked about her boyfriend Jamal, a Georgia Tech engineering student. Dana mentioned her mother, a retired special education teacher, and they shared stories about education and discrimination. Does your mom talk about facing racism? Chloe asked with unexpected earnestness. Every day in some form, Dana replied. It's exhausting. I bet. Jamal talks about it too. People always act surprised when he's smart. Dana found herself warmed by Chloe's honesty and awareness. Maybe there was hope for the future, but as the turbulence subsided and the sign stayed on, Dana felt pressure building again. She needed to go. Again, she hesitated, then pressed the call button. Unfortunately, Susan answered. I really need to use the restroom, Dana said. I'm 6 months pregnant. The sign is on. There's no turbulence. The rules don't change for personal circumstances. A man seated by the window, a business traveler named Greg, spoke up. Come on, let her go. She's pregnant. FAA regulations, Susan replied. I'm not asking for special treatment, Dana said. Just understanding. Susan switched off the call light and walked away. Just go, Chloe whispered. What's she going to do, tackle you? Dana waited a few minutes, then rose. She approached the lavatory again, only to feel fingers dig into her upper arm. I told you to stay seated, Susan hissed. Please let go, Dana said. You people always think you're above the rules. The words hit like a slap. Dana yanked her arm back. You don't get to touch me. And I'm using the restroom. If you have a problem, speak to me afterward. She shut the door behind her and let herself breathe. When she returned, Chloe was furious. She said, You people? You need to report that. Greg leaned over. I saw it too. I'll back you up. Dana was stunned. A witness. A rare show of support. Later, Susan confronted another black passenger, a man helping an elderly woman retrieve her bag. Your kind of help isn't needed, she snapped. Gasps filled the cabin. Dana's resolve solidified. She pulled out her phone and began documenting everything. Susan demanded to see her phone. You don't have that right, Dana told her calmly. You don't get to harass me and then invade my privacy. The confrontation ended when the lead attendant, a black woman named Yvette, intervened. Another flight attendant, Monique, had reported Susan's behavior. Yvette discreetly removed Susan from active duty for the remainder of the flight. Dana landed safely in Atlanta. She filed a formal report with airline customer service. Hours later, she received a voicemail from the captain. He'd grounded Susan pending investigation. 2 weeks later, Dana received an email. United had terminated Susan after multiple witness accounts and a history of prior complaints. Justice. Real, tangible consequences, Dana texted Greg. He replied, "Justice served. Hope you and the baby are well." She told Chloe too. Chloe replied with emojis and cheering messages. Dana smiled. Her daughter kicked in response. "We did good, Ella." Dana whispered to her belly. "We did good." Her husband Marcus walked in with tea. She showed him the email. "They actually fired her?" he asked. "Yup." For once, the system worked. Dana placed her hand on her stomach. One flight. One voice. One stand. And a future that, just maybe, would be better for her daughter because she chose not to stay silent.